And just so everybody knows, this is being recorded as well.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is 12 o'clock, and in Farm Bureau fashion, we start on time. I'm Kevin Papp. I have the honor to serve as president of the Minnesota Farm Bureau. Welcome to the very first shop talk. Now, this is our very first. Now, as a farmer, you know, I can remember back in the days when we put on anhydrous ammonia and used the co-op's toolbar. You never wanted to be the first guy to use the toolbar. You wanted to be like second or third, because it took that first guy or those first attendees on this call that have to take the bugs out of the system. So no promises if there's a bug or two, but I guarantee you by the time we get to the next field or get to the next week on Shop Talk, we'll have this all down to a science, we hope. Full transparency, I'm actually not in my shop. I thought I better have a picture of my shop in the background, but my Wi-Fi is terrible in my shop. So I'm just, I'm sitting at my kitchen table in the house where I hopefully have much better Wi-Fi. Want to welcome everyone to this. I do want to take a minute or two because I know we have some people on the call that have not got a chance to meet or to visit or hear from our new executive director, Karen Schaefer. And I'm going to ask Karen to just briefly introduce herself and also welcome the group. So Karen, are you on the call?
I am on the call. It's listed as Amber because I was actually on an attendee mode, so I wasn't able to be a panelist, but very excited that the public policy team decided that this would be a good strategy to communicate some of the great work we've been doing and frankly, bring our farmers and ranchers up to speed as to all of the efforts that have been going on with public policy efforts over the years and some great hot topics that we're excited to share with you. So if you enjoy this, we encourage you to share it with any other Farm Bureau members that you think are missing out, and excited to have this on a weekly basis. So we'll get a lot of great content out to our members and hopefully provide some services that are a little different through this COVID challenging time. So looking forward to today. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Karen. And I would also encourage, this is a member benefit. I think it's going to be a great member benefit, but it's also a tool we can use, a shop tool we can use for potential members. So this, you do not have to be a member. So if you've got a neighbor or somebody else that's interested in what is Farm Bureau, what do they do, you can see on your screen. We could talk about that to join. But this is open to all, and because it is open, that's why we typically, everybody that will be muted right now, and your video is off. We are going to record this, so hopefully that's okay with everybody. This will be recorded. That way we can use it in the future. There will be some opportunities for questions. Now, if you're on the phone, not on the internet, I believe on the phone you have to hit *9 to kind of raise your hand or to get our attention to ask a question. If you're on an iPhone or an iPad or your computer, you can see there's a question and answer button either on the top or bottom or side of the screen, depending on what format you're at. You also can raise your hand if you want to answer a question. So we want to make sure we have those opportunities. Again, appreciate all those that are on for participants. We hope this is a group that will grow, and it will take your word of mouth to do that. Our first guest is Ag Chair Jean Poppy, and I'm not going to do a long introduction to Chairman Poppy, but I am going to do, I know she comes from a Farm Bureau family and has lots. I've been a friend of Farm Bureau for many years, and we've worked together, and in the Farm Bureau way. I'll let you tell any other introductory things, but I guess I just want to start, Madam Chair, with wishing you a belated happy birthday. We're a couple days late, but happy birthday from Minnesota Farm Bureau. And with that, would ask you to give us about 15 minutes of your time. We appreciate that, and a little bit of an update on what's going on at the state capitol. So, Madam Chair, please.
Thank you so much, President Papp, and for everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And yes, I grew up in a Farm Bureau family. My dad was Houston County Farm Bureau president for a period of time. And so I grew up on a farm outside of Houston. Now I live in Austin, Minnesota. So I am proud to live in an area that has a lot of agriculture, obviously. So I'm happy about that. And thank you for the opportunity today to be able to talk about what we did really this last year, but even over the course of the last 2 years. We've had a very successful time in the Ag and Food Finance and Policy Division Committee. We are, I think we should be the hallmark of what should be happening at the Capitol. We have a lot of good bipartisan support. We don't always agree on everything. We have good meetings, we have good discussions, but in the end, we've come up with bills that actually have made it through the process and been able to be signed into law. So that's a good thing. So I just want to give kind of a recap about what happened this year. We did both an ag policy bill and an ag finance bill, and those two were very successful. I worked with Senator Westrom on finance, and we were able to come up with a number of things. And let me just say that obviously the pandemic made a big difference. When COVID-19 hit, we had much more of a focus switch from where we were at the beginning. We started a little bit late this year. We started in February. That's not necessarily late, but in the second year of the biennium, we have the opportunity to choose when our date is for starting the session. And we started in the middle of February. And by the middle of March, that's when everything changed, and we had to work from home, and we weren't able to communicate quite as easily. So in February, when we got together, we knew that there were two high priorities for us to kind of work on, and one was related to the vet diagnostic lab. We wanted to make sure that we had the testing equipment that they were requesting, and that was going to take some money. And we also had the farm safety issue. Minnesota, unfortunately, was at the top of the nation for the number of deaths and related to farm safety and grain bin safety. And so we wanted to deal with that. We wanted to be able to have some money set aside for grants and to do some things with that. And we, at the time that we started these discussions, we as a state had a surplus. So we were looking at potentially having some money, especially to do one-time funding. So we thought we'd be able to pay for the vet diagnostic lab, be able to pay for farm safety grants, and we should be good, maybe find a few other things that we wanted to be able to pay for. But things changed when the pandemic hit, and we needed to readjust, knowing that with the state really shutting down for a period of time, we weren't going to have the same amount of revenue coming in, which would adjust the budget eventually. And so we really needed to continue to focus on what we wanted to, but we needed to add a few things. So we were able to add some other issues that were related to the pandemic. And some of those things were farm loan origination fee. We have some grants for that. We had farm advocate services to do an increase there, especially in the southwestern Minnesota, because that's where we were seeing kind of the hot spot and the need, especially when we had our meat and poultry producers having to shut down for a period of time. We did some retail food handler safety grants. That was for the small groceries throughout rural Minnesota, because they had to have, they were essential workers, essential businesses. They needed to continue to serve people. And so they maybe needed to have masks or plexiglass or other things like that. We had expansion of meat and poultry processing plants. And this really was for the small butchers and small meat markets, because as you know, there were some times when the larger plants were not able to run. And when they were shut down, that really caused a backup for all of the farmers that were wanting to take their animals and their poultry somewhere and weren't able to. So to try to increase that, and we work with MDA quite extensively to help with that. Just mental health services and outreach. We continue to provide services and have been doing that for the last number of years, but to try and increase that. And then just other kind of value-added opportunities for people who were in, they might have been small farmers or medium-sized farmers, and they needed some additional assistance if they were impacted by COVID-19. So we were able to do those things. One of the changes for us from when we started out and said, okay, this is what the package is going to be. And like I said, I worked with Senator Westrom, so we actually did what you wouldn't normally do. Usually the House would have a bill, the Senate would have a bill, and then you'd have to bring them together and in a conference committee. But we didn't have the luxury of that kind of time. And frankly, the effort was going to be great to do it that way. So we needed to kind of pre-conference, get a bill together that we would both agree to. And so Senator Westrom and I spent time communicating about what that was going to be. And then when the money situation was such that we weren't going to have the surplus of a budget, we needed to be a little creative. So we did a couple of things. One was figured out that the majority of what we wanted in our bill was COVID-19 related. And so that was CARES Act eligible for federal funding. So we needed to write the bills so that they actually said that it was CARES Act funding. And then the two things that we started out as our priorities were the vet diagnostic lab and the farm safety grant money. Those were not going to be able to be COVID-19 related. So we weren't going to be able to get any federal dollars for that. But what we did for that was we actually adjusted the GREET funding, the money that goes for ag research, to the University of Minnesota. We adjusted that to say that part of what they were going to pay for was going to be the vet diagnostic lab, which made sense anyway, that the money, because it is at the University of Minnesota, so they're kind of repurposing the money they get in order to help support an entity within the University of Minnesota. And then we did kind of take back $100,000 from the GREET funding in order to be able to start the farm safety grant program. So we were able to do that. I also then worked with Senator Weber, and we worked on our policy bill. And again, we were able to get these done during regular session, very bipartisan efforts, bipartisan vote, very strong support for agriculture and food and what we did. So we spent some time on hemp. That was certainly an issue that we have. We talked about emerging farmers, and as we all know, the age of farmers in Minnesota is creeping up, as far as the age, and many people are, especially during these times, probably considering retirement, how they're going to transition away from the farm. And so what can we do about encouraging young people or other people who maybe weren't necessarily thinking about agriculture and farming? How do we bring them into this discussion? How do we want to make sure that they are part of our agricultural system in the future? MALC, which is the Minnesota Agricultural Leadership Council, Education Leadership Council, we were able to make changes for them, and that was a good thing. So things that they had asked for, grain buyer contract timeline, we extended that. That was something we had done last year, kind of shortened the timeline. We extended it because that was asked of us to do. Our veterinarians who go out and might see an animal that's in distress, if they want to report that to authorities, they were under the possibility of being charged either civilly or criminally for that reporting. And so we wanted to give them immunity, and many other states have that. So we wanted to do that. So that fit into the ag policy bill as well. Again, some farm safety reporting was done there. and the Ag Innovation Soy Campus that we have in Crookston. We were able to kind of clean up that language, so we've got that. And early on, we actually did a couple of bills. We did the ag farmer lender, well, we've done farmer lender mediation to extend that. We did that because of the COVID situation, so we were able to extend that. But we also brought some money to Second Harvest Heartland. That was another thing that we did COVID related, so that we have many people who are hungry and going to food shelves. So we now have more access to funds for them. And then we also did the standalone bill that extended the farmer lender mediation and provided for just kind of a relief from a moratorium on foreclosures until December, based on what was going on right now. And early on, the Rural Finance Authority, we replenished some funds there as well. So we were, like I said, we were successful. We were bipartisan. We kind of, because of that, you kind of push aside anything that might have been more challenging for us to deal with or do. And so I think it was a good session. In light of everything, we continue to know that there are a number of issues that our farmers are facing. So, trying to make sure that we are able to respond. And I know we've had strong support from Farm Bureau. We've had just lots of all of the commodity groups, all of the people that are the lobbyists in agriculture. They're able to be able to support us and bring things forward and communicate behind the scenes in order to be successful. So that's really, I don't want to go over my time, but I do want to be able to say, if you have questions, I can try to answer any quick, brief questions as well. But I think we were, it was a good session in light of the fact that it was really challenging and COVID-19 impacted it quite severely.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate that. And again, just remind the Farm Bureau members and others on this event that agriculture, as in the past, like many times at the state and national level, we understand in farming and ranching that working together works. And we did work together. We got our chores done on time in a bipartisan. And the next time you hear a friend or a neighbor talk about those blankety blank legislators or they're not getting anything done, that's not always the case. In agriculture, we got our work done. So we appreciate that. And it's not just at the state level, also at the national level with the ag committees. We do that. I see we've got Paula is on with Senator Smith's office on this call, and we appreciate the work not only at the local levels by local county farm bureaus, but the state and the national as well. Amber, do we have any questions in the queue?
No, we don't, Mr. President.
All right, well, with that, any closing comments, Madam Chair?
No, just I always appreciate the support, and I've known Amber for a lot of years. I've known Kevin as well a long time, but Amber and I have a history, and so I've known her since she was in high school, and so I'm very proud of the work that she does, and proud to be able to represent agriculture. It's I think my dad is no longer alive, but I think he would really be proud of the fact that I get to chair this committee and participate in the legislature. And so I'm very happy to be able to be there and doing the work and getting guidance from some really smart people who truly are in the field and in their shops, telling us how they, what the real world is and what we should be doing and thinking about. And so I appreciate that.
Madam Chair and Mr. President, we actually do have a couple questions if we have time for just one question quick. And this one comes from Miles Kushel and says, rural Minnesota has struggled with getting decent broadband. Can you talk a little bit about what we can do to get on par with our city neighbors?
Thank you. That's a great question. Yes. We do need to do, and that's, if this pandemic did one thing, it really highlighted what the difference is between areas that have good broadband and those that don't. And so if you want to run a business, if you want to help your kids do well in school, if you just want to be able to do meetings like this during this time, you have to have good broadband. I serve also on the Greater Minnesota Jobs Committee, and we did bring forward a bill. I know that in both the Senate and the House, there were bills brought forward to increase the funds for broadband. I'd like to be able to see that. You know that we're going to have special sessions throughout the coming months here. We likely will do that because if the budget needs to be adjusted, we have to have a balanced budget. So then we would have to gather together for work to be done. But yes, broadband is definitely a high priority. And like I said, we had bills in both the House and Senate. They just didn't get it completely together to be able to come forward. But I know it's a high priority, and I anticipate, I'm not sure if it will happen in special session this time or in future ones, but I know that it's a priority, and we need to address it, and it's become just highlighted even more based on our recent events.
I certainly agree with that. I think everybody has a different appreciation of not only having broadband, but broadband speed. High-speed broadband is pretty important, and I know you come from an education background. I think a lot of us are having a different appreciation for teachers in the education system. It's maybe not as easy as it looks. With that, we need to stay on schedule. We again want to thank you, Madam Chair, for your time. Certainly welcome to stay on if you'd like, but I know you've got a busy schedule. Next on the agenda is Cody Lyon, and Cody is another one of our great staff at the American Farm Bureau level. We've got great staff here in Minnesota, and again, a special shout out to Amber and Josie for putting this together, and our AFBF staff do a great job. I love each and every one of them. But if I had to pick a favorite American Farm Bureau staff person, he knows who he is because he's smiling on the picture now, is when you're a brand new president and show up at an event and not realize you're supposed to be on stage, and worse yet, not realize you're supposed to have a coat on, sport coat on, when you do go on stage. And you've got an AFBF staff person that can find a coat that fits your president in a matter of seconds. That's a pretty big deal to me. So as every time I see Cody, the first thing and the last thing I always ask him, is there anything I can get for you? Because he was very helpful to me at my very first AFBF meeting as a president. So with that, Cody Lyon, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and join us and screen share. Welcome to the first, I don't know if you've ever rented or used in Hydra's toolbar from the co-op, but so far our first time is going pretty well. So welcome, Cody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Papp. It's always good to see you. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. Yeah, helping you out. Your first annual meeting was a highlight of mine. It was one of my first times handling the annual meeting stage, and being able to problem solve in a hurry was a challenge, and I was glad we were able to help you out. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. I'm going to kind of talk to you a little bit about what has changed and what's been altered as we deal with advocacy and how important that is. One of the key things that has not changed, and I don't think hasn't changed over the last 4 months and hasn't changed in the 15 years that I've been working with advocacy and at the American Farm Bureau and with our state farm bureaus, is the importance of relationships. That will transcend any other trends, any other things that's going on, is that ability to have that working relationship with those people who are making decisions. Brad Fitch, who's president of the Congressional Management Foundation, said this, and I think this is very apropos in a lot of different areas, and it helps with the Farm Bureau side, that groups with extensive grassroots networks who are skilled at advocacy, which I think Farm Bureau is, Farm Bureau continues to be. Farm Bureau does a very good job at being able to train advocates to do things the right way, to have to build the networks and interact with lawmakers. But I think the key thing here is and have built relationships with members of Congress, and that can even translate to the state level and local level as well. We'll be the ones who excel. Farm Bureau, I think, meets these two things, and it's one of the things, these two categories I think we are proud of. It's two of the things that we continue to see how we need to do things differently, how we can continue to improve in what we're doing. And that building relationships is always an ongoing proposition. It's always something that we at American Farm Bureau need to focus on. We work with our advocates and members to be able to continue to find ways to build those relationships with those people who are making decisions that are impacting the way you do your business on a day in and day out basis. And so relationships is key. Relationships will always be key. And I think it's one of the things that over the last 4 months, we're starting to see some changes in how advocacy needs to be done, but that relationships will always be key because it's always that person-to-person engagement. It's that face-to-face that matters. It's a trust that is key for everything. When the first parts on this slide is from Wired Open Gov from a couple of years ago, and they found out what it takes to make Congress listen, and this is true for no matter what you do. Nothing. You're not going to change a member's mind on an issue overnight. It's going to take a continuing conversation. It's going to take that continuing engagement and involvement over many visits, over many emails, over many text messages, meetings back at the farm or going to Washington, D.C. to help understand and help you become that trusted resource. When I worked on Capitol Hill, every staff member, and I was the same way, you had a list of names of people back in the state or the district who you knew and trusted. So if something came up or you saw something you didn't quite understand, those were the people you wanted to call to help give you that understanding of the issue, what the impact was going to be at the state level, the local level, within that local community. And so you wanted to be able to kind of have that list of constituents who you couldn't rely on. And so when those constituents came and visited, you want to make sure that you spent time with them, you had that interaction with them. And so when a member of Congress or their staffs have to deal with 10 or a dozen different meetings from different groups on 10 or 12 different topics in a day, you want to be able to make sure that you're the ones who they can rely on when they have a question or they need something to help their boss determine how they should vote or decide to go in a certain direction, and give them a lot of context on what's happening. The second one is from the Harvard Business Review. This is from a couple years ago, and this one may be changing a little bit more now, given that face-to-face is not quite, or not able to do that. But we know that face-to-face, that ability to be together, is 34 times more successful than an email in order to influence a lawmaker. And the reason for that is primarily because you get to have that interaction. You get to have a give and take. You can ask questions of them, they can ask questions of you. You can build on a conversation that you're having that an email or sometimes just a patch through phone call or a text message is just one-way communication. Face-to-face helps build that relationship. Face-to-face helps you become that trusted source that every staff member wants to have. They want to be able to know that they're helping their boss make the best decision for their constituents. And so it's the ability to have that interaction that becomes important. Now, what COVID has done in the last 4 months or so is changed from an in-person meeting into more of a Zoom meeting, a virtual meeting, a teletown hall conference. And so this format does offer some of that interaction that you need to be able to have. It's not quite being in the same room, but you are able to be together. You are able to share ideas and share your asks, share the questions that you have. If you've gone through any session with me, especially the last 6-7 years, I am a big believer in storytelling. And it was one of the things that when I first came on board 15 years ago of how can you make someone appreciate and understand what farmers and ranchers do on a day in, day out basis if they don't have that experience themselves, or they're generations removed from that experience. And the best way to do that is by storytelling. And storytelling is just a way that helps your listener understand better what you're experiencing. It puts them in a frame of mind that they can appreciate and understand the things you're doing. Came across this formula that Pixar Movies does, and it's a great formula for advocacy as well, in that it helps you frame a complex policy position and put it in a way that your listener can easily understand what you want them to do. And this structure can help you put your thoughts together. And this structure also helps the listener be able to put themselves in your shoes and be able to kind of have empathy with the things you're trying to say. So this formula is what Pixar does for every single one of their movies, and it's also the thing that I think can help you tell your story. And it's simply once upon a time there was, which is you live here, you produce this every day, you get up, you do this. The one day is the challenge you're having, or the one issue that you want to see done or accomplished. And because of this challenge, or because of this new thing, you have this increased cost, or because of that, you have to do this differently. Because of that, you're unable to be as successful, or your yields are not quite as high as they need to be, or you have this additional burden that you need to overcome, until finally is the ask, is the thing that you want that lawmaker or their staff to do. So if you're able to kind of frame your ask, your advocacy ask in this way, it will help not just you deliver the message, it will help the person listening understand exactly what you're saying, and helps put them in your shoes so that they can better understand why you want this to be done. Some of the lessons that we've learned over the last 4 months, from post-COVID are things that we've known in advocacy for the 15 years that I've been doing it. This has just driven all these things to the forefront, because first and foremost, the urgency was there. When all this started coming about, and there were economic losses, there were health impacts, there were all kinds of things that people had a fear about, they were uncertain about, that created that urgency. And whenever there is urgency, that always drives action. And that the COVID-19 issue just brought all this to the forefront, and a lot of different people from different professions, different organizations, different walks of life, how they were impacted differently. But they had an urgency to tell their lawmakers that they needed to do something to help out. There was a problem that was facing, there was that urgency that was making it difficult for them to continue to do something, and so they wanted to engage. When we talked to different vendors in Washington, D.C., who provide the advocacy platforms, they were seeing tremendous amounts of increase in the number of people who were sending messages to Capitol Hill on what needed to be done to address some of the challenges facing the country. So we've always known urgency drives action, and nothing was more urgent in most people's lives than what was happening 4 months ago or so, and what Congress was doing with at the time to kind of help address those initial challenges. The second thing is that, everyone we've seen, that means every demographic that we've been able to kind of track and look at from different vendors, we're taking action, and no group was not sending messages to their members of Congress. And so we knew, women, Generation X members, and millennials were leading the way, because everything was happening very quickly. Everything was happening in an immediate sense. There was that urgency. And so those were the ones, I think, that led into that third part, that mobile is that participation equalizer. Before the COVID-19, people used email, they used, phones to kind of call in, but there was that kind of urgency that showed how mobile became a great participation equalizer. And by that, it simply became everybody had a phone in their hand. They were getting immediate news alerts. They were getting text messages from associations they belonged to, or emails of associations they belonged to. And they knew that they needed to do something now. And so the phone became that extension of their ability, an extension of their relationships with lawmakers, to be able to send a message, send an email, make that communication immediately. And we talked, a question from Miles about broadband was earlier. Broadband, we know, is not universal in the U.S., but sometimes mobile phone access is, and it's accessible more than kind of broadband. So the phones became such a tool for every single group to be able to contact their members of Congress. The fourth thing we're kind of seeing is that, social networks continue to be very influential. They continue to be very influential in the way that people share information. They continue to be influential in the way that that groups drive what they want to see done, that they encourage others to do different things. Social networking, I think, is key when it comes to advocacy because it is this peer-to-peer approach. It is me telling my friends, I've done this, or I shared this, I ask you or encourage you to do the same thing. That's different than an association asking you to do it that you belong to, because that peer-to-peer approach encourages more participation, and that's where the social networks come into play, and they remain to be extremely influential, and they're probably going to remain influential going forward as we kind of go into the next several months and see what happens with COVID-19. At Farm Bureau, we do a lot with kind of how we train, how we work with advocates, how we let advocates kind of decide what they feel most comfortable in getting engaged with. And this, in this environment that we're in now, you kind of see mobile's important, social networking is important, relationships are important. And members can do a lot of different things. You can, build those relationships and be those top advocates for Minnesota Farm Bureau. You can do in-person activities, or if not in person, you can do the virtual activities, virtually attend those in-district meetings, contribute to candidates who you support and like during especially this election period. You can engage with emails, phone calls, those kind of things, post on social media to kind of continue to be involved in advocacy. Advocacy is not simply one thing. It's really what you feel most comfortable doing to help advance the policy objectives of the organization and influence those people who are making those decisions. The trends are changing, how it's being done is changing, but the key facts remain of you have to get involved, you have to have that connection and communication with those people making the decisions to be involved. It's just how you do it may change as we kind of go forward. And I'll close by saying, I'd be remiss if I didn't also, talk about the teammates of Mike and Randy on my team. It's all of us working together with the other state farm bureaus and Minnesota Farm Bureau to making sure that we are all working together. We're all aligned and coordinated in all of our grassroots activities and efforts as we kind of continue to go forward. And this becomes, very important for us at Farm Bureau because it is a team effort. It's a group effort. We work very closely with our public policy staff, with our communication staff and others to make sure that Farm Bureau stays engaged and involved in all these different activities and challenges that we're seeing going on right now. So with that, Amber, I'm happy to take any questions or whatever information I may have missed that you wanted me to cover. I'm happy to cover that now.
So again, I'll just remind everybody, if you're on a phone, if you hit *9, you can ask a question. You can certainly raise your hand to be unmuted to ask a question, or we do have the question and answer feature on there. And as we're waiting for that first question, Cody, I guess I'm going to ask a question. Maybe it's not the best question to ask first, but I think it's an important question. As Farm Bureau members, what do we do wrong? We do a lot of things right, but what do we do wrong?
I think there's ability to learn in kind of everything that we do. I think one of the biggest things we have to do as Farm Bureau members is reach to every member of a congressional delegation. And that's, especially if you're in a state that has a large urban congressional delegation, you have to be able to kind of build relationships with those members. And the biggest issue with that is there may not be a lot of farmer rancher constituents within downtown Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Milwaukee, or Chicago, whatever it is. But those members of Congress have one key vote. They have one key vote, the same as a member of Congress who may represent a district that is a third of your state. So it's being able to interact with those urban members of Congress that I think is always key for us. I don't think we're doing it wrong, but I think it's always key to be able to do that, because in the House of Representatives, where there are 435 total votes, close to 200 of those 435 represent a district that is urban, or roughly about 98% urban. So they come from urban centers. They come from areas that don't have production agriculture as part of their districts, but they do have consumers. They do have people who want the fresh fruit and produce. They want the fresh meats. They want all the different things that help lead to quality diet. And I think that's key to be able to kind of continue to build a relationship with those members of Congress, because those are the ones who are going to have key votes on any number of different issues, especially in the House of Representatives.
You know, it's frustrating because sometimes we see our Farm Bureau members, we meet with some people, and the first thing they'll want to tell us is, well, I don't have any farmers in my district. And that's true, like you've just explained. But what you do have in the district is people that have a connection with food. So I think sometimes we need to think more about what is our connection, not so much with the farm, but make it a food connection, and then that helps. And we see that here in Minnesota as our more urban legislators. Yeah, not a lot of farmers or ranchers in that district, but everybody eats. But yet many of those, Representative McCollum, for example, has a certain amount of seniority, appropriations, things like that. It is important to connect with each and every member, and that's why from a Minnesota Farm Bureau perspective, we make sure to try to get into all 10 offices every time we're in DC. So thank you for that. Amber, do we have any questions in the queue?
We do. Shane Isney asked, how do we stay positive in our advocacy in a time of so much negativity?
That's a good question. I can tell you that from advocacy and political purposes, it's all cyclical. It will all come back around. So if you feel like you're in a very negative ebb right now, it'll flow to a very positive one, I think soon. The biggest thing is in staying positive is that ability to know that you have the the tools and the skill sets in order to be successful. If you're talking about building relationships, that doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. It takes time in being, away from some of the things you're doing to be able to interact, to be able to talk to their staffs and have their staffs understand where you're coming from. It's hard to remain positive when you see a lot of negative stuff, but I also think if you can find other positive things that will help kind of give you more enthusiasm, then I think that's good. And success stories are where that can happen. I have two daughters, and one of the things I try to focus on is the ability to kind of find something positive for them. And it's asking them, what was one of the best things that happened to you today? And I find myself wanting to ask that question of myself as well. I want to be able to ask that and be able to have that kind of positive answer, because it's tough. It's stressful. It's hard. There's a lot of uncertainty out there right now. But I do feel like we have the tools in place in order to influence the things we want to influence and be successful in the things that we want to be successful at. But those good things don't come easily. They come through time, they come through persistence, they come through teamwork, they come through effort, they come through shared experiences. They come through a lot of the things that help us continue to kind of look at the light at the end of the tunnel. And being able to rely on others, I think, becomes important to do that. From an advocacy standpoint, we do have the skill sets. Farm Bureau has excelled in that. Those I did not bring those to Farm Bureau when I started. They were already at Farm Bureau. I've had the ability to learn what they are, to kind of help see where trends are going, to kind of help state farm bureaus be able to kind of achieve those successes that they've seen. And those successes are never mine. They are absolutely others, the people who are involved and working very closely to make that happen.
Thank you, Cody. We had another question that asked, how do you see in-person meetings and lobby days changing in this COVID world?
When we're looking at Washington, D.C., that's going to be unique. I think the local environment, local governing authority is going to determine a lot of what can and cannot happen. When we look at specifically Capitol Hill, I think you're looking at 535 offices, the 100 Senate, 435 in the House, who get to kind of decide among their kind of own offices what they think is best for their office. What we know right now is that there is it's restricted to senior staff. Certain level staff are able to kind of get in. Constituent visits are kept to a minimum. I anticipate that continuing. So even though you have 10 members of your delegation, you may have 10 different processes or procedures for how they're going to operate, perhaps come September, the first part of October, before they're completely back home, and mid-October, late October for the election. Unfortunately, it's just going to change. We're kind of in a wait and see mode too. We're trying to get as much information as we can to see if there's going to be something standard. And right now we just don't know what Congress, what a lot of the congressional officers are going to do, and what they're going to be allowed to do. I think some of that's going to be determined by the DC authority, by the House and the Senate as well, through their rules and their procedures, and the Capitol Police if they're involved. As soon as we know something, we're going to share that with the state farm bureaus and kind of move from there.
Thank you. I'm just going to add to that answer a little bit. Some of it's going to be positively affected. We're seeing Zoom meetings where it's much easier to get a state legislator on for 10 or 15 minutes to join us, scheduling and things like that. They can make that work. I think the hard part from a Farm Bureau perspective is making sure our members communicate with us. I mean, when we were in the heart of the COVID battle, I'll call it, we were getting one call a day from a state or a national, either elected official or appointed official, someone, what are you hearing? What's up there? And things like that. So the hard part is with the coffee shops and the grain elevators and not a lot of that open, you don't hear a lot of things from our members unless our members tell us. And I think that's really important that our members, not only are they the lifeblood of the organization, they're kind of our eyes and ears out there. And we really need them to tell us what they're hearing or what they're seeing and feeling. Amber, is there
I would
another
definitely
question?
agree. I would definitely agree with you on that. I think that's the Zoom virtual stuff has enhanced a lot of those not in-person meetings, but at least in the screen Zoom meetings. You're able to see each other. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
We had one person ask, how do we build consensus when ag is so diverse, especially if, and then you go lobby for something that they might only agree with a small part of?
I think building that consensus takes, it takes communication, takes working with all the different groups involved. We do that at American Farm Bureau on a daily basis, trying to make sure that we're able to find allies within agriculture who can kind of share different ideas. It takes communication. It takes that ability to, if someone disagrees, that you know why they disagree, but you're able to kind of find some type of consensus. And a lot of that can come down to what's grown or produced or raised is going to end up on someone's table down the line. As President Pat mentioned earlier, everyone eats, and so agriculture is that group of people who supply what people eat, clothe themselves with, fuel their vehicles with on a day in, day out basis. We are kind of that beginning of everything that most people have. And agriculture needs to be able to kind of find different ways to disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that's finding a lot of the sense to where you do agree more and focus on those aspects and find ways to kind of continue to move things forward. Everything that is accomplished is done incrementally. That I've found, the big steps in policy and other things are just difficult to come around. And it's those incremental changes, the things that you want to see done are the things that get done more quickly, but it takes that consensus effort to do that, and that communication is vital to make that happen.
Thank you. Another question is, in this time where the consumer has come to have a more tangible grasp of what the value of the farmer is there any way to leverage, if you will, our consumer to help agriculture gain more support?
I think the best way consumers continue to fight for what farmers and to support farmers, ranchers, and others is that they see the things that you're doing. I think this is where video becomes very important. This is where you can have, farm hours where you can show things that are happening on your farm or ranch. helping them understand the things that farmers deal with on a day in, day out basis becomes vitally important. And if they can't get out to a farm or ranch, having them see it, even if it's just a 5-minute, 6-minute video of one thing. You want the video to focus on one thing, but that video can spread so easily. The videos are seen, they're noticed, people want to grab hold of them. And videos are that kind of component that just help everybody get a better understanding of what they're doing. The second thing it does is it can, consumers can ask questions. And if they ask questions, you want to be able to answer those questions honestly and properly. Why you do different things, why you help out in different areas. All that becomes vital for a lot of different consumers to better understand farmers and ranchers. And when they better understand you, then you've got an ally right on your side.
Well, certainly want to thank you, Cody, for all you do, not only this last hour, but throughout your Farm Bureau career, and appreciate all that all the American Farm Bureau staff does as a team. We as Farm Bureau state presidents throughout this whole COVID had weekly calls, administrators have weekly calls, national affairs coordinators had weekly calls. Everyone was in contact. Our members need to know that certainly with President Duvall and the 50 state presidents had multiple opportunities with not only the Secretary of Agriculture and his team, EPA administrator, small business administration, and others as we're working through this. So with this, I guess I just like to kind of close it out. And as we come to a little bit of a close, I don't know if we've got any PowerPoints. I know, again, my number is on there. If there's anything I can do, Amber and Josie, I'm going to ask each of you just to make a couple comments and close it out. So we got a chance to thank you both for putting this together. This is hopefully going to be a great thing. So I'm going to ask Josie first to make a couple closing comments and any quick update on the state session, and then Amber to finish off the call, because you're the two that put all the hard work into this. So thank you for that. And Josie, please.
Thanks, President Papp. Excuse us while we work through some technical difficulties. I think we heard a good update from Chair Poppy as we look to the next special session. But I think the important thing to note in her comments is special sessions, plural. So the governor's emergency powers will expire on July 13th. And, there's speculation that he will continue to renew those and calling the legislature into the second special session of the summer, what could be a long summer of special sessions. So on behalf of the Minnesota Farm Bureau and all of our members, Amber and I will be monitoring the actions of the special session and making sure that we stay up to date on what's happening, not only for agriculture, but current events. Please always reach out to either of us if you have questions. We are here to be a resource for you as members and to make sure that we advocate on behalf of agriculture. So thank you very much, President Papp.
I can't hear Amber. Maybe everybody else can.
Is this better? No.
Yep, you're in.
There? Now you can hear me? Awesome. Thank you. Sorry about that. Just appreciate the work that Josie's been doing, especially at the state capitol, as we kind of maneuver through some of those issues. Just want to I appreciate everybody joining this. I think we've been really trying to get creative here at Minnesota Farm Bureau on how we continue to provide some of those, the information that we're used to providing to our members, just in a different format. So we're really excited about this series. Really appreciate the whole Minnesota Farm Bureau staff and the teamwork it's come to put this together. But we're excited as we look forward to the coming weeks. We're going to be doing a 9-part series, so 8 more Thursdays after this. Please join us. Do you want to flip to the next? So it'll be the same Zoom link you used to join today. We'll get you into this every Thursday at noon. Next week, we'll be hearing from our special guest will be USDA Deputy Secretary Steve Senske, who is the right-hand man to Secretary Perdue. So we're very excited to hear from him. He's actually got some Minnesota roots. So excited to have him join his old friends and neighbors on that call. But it'll be a good opportunity to hear what USDA has been doing and will continue to do throughout some of the pressures that Minnesota agriculture has faced. And then next week's presenter will be Dr. John Newton from the American Farm Bureau Federation. He's our chief economist, and he's really going to dive into some of the economic pressures, what we've seen both through COVID and some of the trade agreements in China and all those different things that are impacting the ag economy and what that all means. So really excited to hear from him. So again, appreciate everybody joining us this week. Appreciate everything you do for Minnesota Farm Bureau. And if you're not a member, would love to have you. From a public policy side, our strength is definitely our membership, and any way we can have our boots on the ground really advocate for us and using the skills that Cody talked about today to help put our policy into place is always greatly appreciated. So President Papp, back to you for any closing comments.
Well, again, thank you for everybody that put all this together. It was a great first run with the anhydrous toolbar. I guess you can be first and feel good about that. Your Farm Bureau will be working for you each and every day. From my perspective, I'm going from a Zoom call to a WebEx call here at 1 o'clock. The Governor's Council on Biofuels is meeting as we'll look at proposals and what are some things agriculture can do to help with greenhouse gases and things like that. Certainly E15 and renewable fuels be some of the things that we'll be talking about in the next 2 hours on that call. So again, if there's anything we can do to be helpful, make sure and contact public policy team or myself or Karen at the office. And again, thank you everybody for being part of this call. Hope to see you next week on Thursday at noon.